Hey guys, Patrick Sam here from Rocket League, and in today's video I want to go through the difference between primary and secondary conversions inside Google Ads and how you can tailor them to your very own business. So let's jump in. Okay, so before we kind of get into the differences between primary and secondary conversions, let's kind of firstly define what conversions are inside Google Ads. So conversions are considered actions that are happening after an ad is clicked. So someone sees your ads, for example, on the Google search, they click on an ad and then they then get sent to your landing page. So a conversion action could be, for example, a form submission, an e-commerce purchase if you are an online store, a phone call if they click on the phone number listed on your website, a newsletter subscription if you have your own mailing list, and much more. So those are kind of some of the common ones that you normally see being tracked for businesses inside Google Ads. But again, the scope of a conversion action can be really broad. Okay, so how do you set an action optimization for a conversion? So all an action optimization is for a conversion, it's when you basically select whether a conversion is primary or secondary. And again, we'll jump into what the differences are between primary and secondary, but when you create a conversion action for your business, by default, it's set to primary. So always double check these settings. If you have a conversion goal that you don't want to be optimizing towards, make sure after you've created it that you switch it to secondary within the action optimization setting inside your conversion. Okay, so now when it comes to actual conversion actions for your own business, you should always create goals relevant to your business and tracking data that's going to help improve your campaign performance. So let's take a B2B business, for example. So as a B2B business, you might want to track the different stages of your sales funnel. So for example, you might want to track form submissions where a prospective customer becomes a lead and kind of enters your sales funnel. And then you might want to track the additional stages after a lead. So when a lead becomes a marketing qualified lead, when a marketing qualified lead becomes a sales qualified lead, and then finally when a sales qualified lead becomes a closed deal and finally brings in revenue for your business. So this is just an example. An e-commerce business might look a bit different. For example, you might track add to carts, checkouts, and then finally purchases. Again, you should tailor your conversion actions directly to your type of business. Okay, so lastly, let's get into the actual difference between primary and secondary conversions. So primary conversions are actually used by Google's learning algorithms to optimize your campaigns. Now, what that means is, again, let's take an example. Let's say you are an e-commerce business selling physical products, and you might be tracking purchases as your primary conversion action. So this means that Google will kind of have a profile of the users that are making purchases on your website that have come from Google Ads. And so it will use that data to optimize and try and find more customers of a similar type to kind of get more purchases for your campaigns, which is why it's so important to kind of have the right conversion action to give to Google with the adequate amount of data. And the second point, it's recommended to have around 30 conversions per month for your primary conversion action. This is so you have enough data volume to give to Google for it to optimize towards. If you're only getting a handful of conversions for your primary conversion, you might want to look at maybe trying a different conversion action to optimize towards. For example, in the B2B example with the sales funnel, you might have closed deals as the primary action, but you might only be pulling in a handful of closed deals per month. For example, you might only be pulling in like 5 closed deals per month, which is not really ideal. So you could maybe take a step back and use the previous sales funnel steps, such as sales qualified lead, or maybe even just use a lead as a primary conversion action. Let's say you get 100 leads per month. You could use that data to optimize instead. And as the account scales up and maybe your volume of closed deals increases over time, you can then switch back to that goal. Now, obviously, this isn't something all businesses can do. Some really small businesses or niche businesses might just have really low volumes, and in that case it's kind of unavoidable. But as a general rule of thumb, try and keep it around 30 conversions per month minimum. And also you only want to have at least one primary conversion per campaign. So you don't want to be sending mixed signals to Google by having multiple primary action conversions that you're optimizing towards. For example, you wouldn't want to optimize towards purchases on an e-commerce website and also have an additional primary conversion action such as newsletter signups, because a purchase conversion is a lot more valuable than a newsletter subscription sign up. And so if you have kind of two conflicting goals, it's going to be hard for Google's algorithms to kind of optimize towards the right one, which should be purchases in this case if you are an e-commerce business. And finally, conversion or primary conversions are counted inside the conversions column, which only tracks primary conversions and doesn't include secondary conversions. Okay, so secondary conversions are a lot simpler compared to primary conversions. Secondary conversions are observational only. So these are not leveraged by Google's learning algorithms. They ignore this data. And so the data is, for secondary conversions is pretty much only there for yourself to use as kind of a point of reference. And for the second point, secondary conversions are also counted in the all conversions column. So there's two conversion columns inside Google Ads. One is just called conversions, and then the second one is called all conversions. So the all conversions column includes both primary and secondary conversions. And yeah, that's pretty much the difference between primary and secondary conversions. So hopefully that's kind of clarified the difference between the two and how you can tailor it towards your very own business. And yeah, hopefully you found the video informative. So if you would like to see more videos like this, please drop a like and a subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers. Bye.